Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, and this you found the adventure of your lifetime, I think, maybe. And only if you choose it to be. And we've got a great show for you today. We've got the two ladies who are in charge of the Passionista Project, and they do amazing work with all kinds of women and I was gonna say and women and people, and it's like, no, wait, that's not right. They do amazing stuff, and we're going to get into all of that. And our friend Holly, hi Holly, I know you're listening. She can't be with us today, but she'll be with us next time. The Passionistas come and talk to us once every other week, and they bring some incredible human beings along with them. And they have one today. Her name is Natalie, but I'm going to introduce Amy, who's going to introduce the whole gang, and we're going to... Or did I?
Switcheroo.
The old Kevin McDonald switcheroo.
Oh, no. Okay, so I'll tell you what. We'll start with Nancy then, because see, here's the thing. And on the screen, before you were reversed.
That's right, we were.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, you two are sisters anyway, so you're very close. And but Nancy, go ahead and take it away and introduce everybody.
Hi, I'm Nancy Harrington from the Passionistas Project, and my sister Amy's here with me. And thank you so much for having us on, Kevin. And we miss Holly. Holly's usually here with us, helping us welcome the Passionista that we bring in. So we hope she's having a good road trip. Amy and I, like Kevin said, are the sisters and co-founders of the Passionistas Project. We are an inclusive group of women who come together to support one another, and we have an online community where we share all sorts of great information with our membership. But one of our members and dearly, dearly loved Passionista is Natalie Kime, who is here with us today. So Amy, why don't you go ahead and introduce Natalie?
Well, we met Natalie through Julie DeLuca Collins, who gets mentioned on this podcast an awful lot because she is a wonderful person and coach and connector of people. So we're in a weekly mastermind with Natalie, and we were blown away when we met Natalie because we've met a lot of people that do on paper what Natalie does, which is help people with their finances. But we have never met anybody like Natalie, because Natalie does it in such a way that you feel like the person has compassion for you and isn't just helping you crunch numbers, but actually is helping you figure out how to use your money to live your best life now and plan for your future and plan for the future of your family. And so we've never met any money person that is as compassionate as Natalie Kime. So that is why we thought she would be the perfect guest for Positive Talk Radio. So Natalie, why don't you kind of give everybody a little bit of an understanding of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor to be here and to get to share some information with the listeners out there. What I do, in very, very short explanation, is I help people to grow, protect, and save their money. Really what that means is I meet people where they are to understand, what do they already have in place? What needs do they have? And how can I help fill the gaps? So a lot of times it's starting out just by helping somebody build a budget to even track where they are. Other times they may have, a 401k, a Roth IRA, maybe some stock accounts, things like that. But they're really starting to look at, how do I plan for retirement? How do I plan to put my kids through college or pay for a wedding? And that's where I come in to take a look at their complete financial picture and help them start moving in the direction of overall financial freedom for themselves and their loved ones.
Nancy, if I can ask a question, or Natalie, if I can answer the question, why is the financial thing so hard and it's so intimidating and nobody knows? A lot of people don't get it, and then there's these words and there's this Roth thing and this traditional thing and this IRA and it's so hard sometimes. Do you find that it's intimidating for a lot of people?
100%. And I equate it to a couple of things. Number one, we don't get a financial education in the school system in America. When I graduated from high school 30 something years ago, I had learned in my home ec class in one of the modules how to balance a checkbook. When my son graduated from high school 5 years ago, he learned the same thing, but I haven't carried a checkbook consistently for 10 years. So what little we are educating has not changed. And on top of that, we don't talk about it enough in our homes. My parents didn't really talk about finances. They didn't talk about money. They didn't want to worry us. And so as time goes by, when I moved out of my parents' house, again, 30 something years ago, they said, balance your checkbook and don't get credit cards. So can you guess what I did? I did not balance my checkbook. I got credit cards. And in my mid-20s was digging myself out of my first financial hole, learning a lot of lessons from the School of Hard Knocks. And the one saving grace was I didn't make a lot of money, so they didn't give me a whole lot of credit. And so it wasn't the deepest hole in the world I was digging out of, but that's usually the case. People I talk to, whatever their parents did tell them at home and whatever they learned on their own, usually by making mistakes along the way. And so people are intimidated by it because they don't know where to start. They think it's going to cost a lot of money to get help. And they think that they're going to be judged based on where they are. None of those things are true with the people that I work with because I've been there myself.
And do people recognize more so these days that credit cards are not your friend?
How do I answer that? Do more people recognize it? Possibly, but does that keep them from falling into, or running into those pitfalls? No. And for a couple of reasons, right? Sometimes like we're in desperate situations because they don't have a financial education. They haven't implemented the tools. And I'll use myself as an example. I've been a single mom for about 17 years now. And I spent 20 years in corporate America doing corporate finance and accounting. But so even with a college degree, there was a ton I didn't know when it came to personal finance. So even when I went into finance and accounting in college, I didn't learn those things there either. And so there was a time that things were really tight as a single mom. My son and I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment when he was 9 years old, and I was just trying to get by. So I didn't have an emergency fund, and I got 2 flat tires and ruined a rim once. I took a corner wrong and I didn't have the $400 I needed. It was actually almost $500 for 2 tires and a new rim on my car at the time. And so luckily I was blessed with a friend that was able to help me out. But that's one of the things that I educate on is the fact that most people can't cover a $400 emergency if one arises. And so because of that, if they happen to have good credit, then they go and lean on those credit cards. And then that's just, that's like a snowball going downhill over time, because if you can't afford that emergency to begin with, how do you afford to pay off that credit card in the long run?
Yeah.
And ladies, Nancy, I don't know about you, but have you ever had your car fixed?
Oh yes, many times, Kevin.
Why is it that you cannot ever go to a mechanic and get them to do what you need to have done and get out of there for less than $500 or $1,000? Why is there a rule?
Never.
Because you don't know what they're doing. It's all the man behind the curtain. So
yeah,
Oh, Can I take a moment to educate folks a little bit?
Please.
That's what we're here for.
Because if you go, this is how mechanics, like if you go to one of the large tire places that does a lot of different things, this is how they are paid. They get paid a certain dollars per hour,
Mhm.
but they're responsible for selling anybody who comes in everything that they can possibly think of that car might need. Whether it actually needs it or not is not necessarily the point. They're trying to get you to spend as much as you can, as much as they can get out of you. So it's not like the mechanic, he's your friend. It's he wants to make a living off of you. And Natalie, have in your experience, have you found that to be true?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. As a matter of fact, I got to know somebody in finance at a car dealership really well a few years back. And they told me that car dealerships do not make money by selling cars. They make money by the maintenance they do on cars. So that's really why they want you to sit down with the finance guy, buy the maintenance package, because their numbers are measured by what comes through the shop, not what goes off the lot. And that was a huge eye opener. I was certainly blessed. My dad's always been a card guy, so he taught me. Well, back in the day, now you can't even get to most of these things in your car. But back in the day, I could change my own oil. I could bleed the brakes. I could change an alternator. I could change a starter. I was really blessed. He said, I want you to have a man, but I don't want you to need one. And I want you to know when it comes to the basics on your car, if somebody's trying to take advantage of you. And so I don't think everybody necessarily has that same knowledge and information. And again, today, most of those things, it's really difficult to do them on your own. But yeah, and it's, it's not just when it comes to cars, it's a lot of things. If you're not fully educated, and it can happen in the financial world as well. People walk in and sit down with somebody, and unfortunately, their job is just to move a product to a client. And not every product fits every client, and not every product fits every client right now. And that's why one of the things I do is what's called a financial needs analysis. It's a comprehensive look at the overall picture, everything you have coming into your household from a financial perspective and everything you have going out. I'm not going to put somebody in a position of having a product that they can't afford. And what I mean by that is sometimes we need to address debt before we can really build savings. Sometimes we can do a little of both at the same time. But unfortunately, even in the financial world, people are given products all the time that either don't make sense for them or they can't afford. And what ends up happening is that protection, that safety net you're supposed to be giving somebody, is actually putting them in a worse situation. And so they end up letting the policy lapse or not funding, the product, whatever the case might be, and throwing away money a lot of times when the whole goal was to create financial freedom.
Amy, have you ever gone to a department store and you're going and you picking the stuff that you want to get, and you go to the cashier, and the first thing she says before she even says hello is, "Hey, would you like to have a credit card today? We'll take 10% off of what you're going to pay today if you get a credit card today. Isn't that a great deal?" Natalie, that's not such a good deal, is it?
No, it's, as a matter of fact, that happened 3 times to me last week.
Wow.
3 times to me last week.
Wow.
And that's the thing too, back in my day, you'd go to college and they would have tables set up on college campuses. And there are rules in place that don't allow them to do this the same way that they used to. But hey, come get a free t-shirt if you open up a credit card account.
Yep.
And so you're putting kids who are between 18 and 22 years old in a position with no understanding of how money works, and more importantly, no understanding of how credit works, in a position of just creating a mountain of debt that they can't get out from under, or it takes them a very long time to do so. One of the things I educate on, a really simple rule, is called the rule of 72. And it's how to determine either how often your money will double for you in a savings perspective or against you in a credit perspective. So any interest rate you're earning or paying divide it into 72. That's how many years it takes for your money to double either for or against you. So if you're earning 10% in an account, your money doubles for you every 7.2 years, right? But if you have a 20% credit card, your debt is doubling against you every 3.5. So you can't save anywhere near as quickly as that debt doubles against you. And then we end up in a position where people don't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then they have to talk about bankruptcy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And I can't tell you the number of times my kids have come to me and said, Dad, but it's a great deal. As a matter of fact, my oldest son, he just bought a fifth wheel. Great deal, Dad. Great deal. Really? Okay. How good of a deal is it? The interest rate's a little high, but it's not that bad. He paid right now. What he didn't know is they front load the interest. They explain what front loading the interest means because he's paying off $20 a month out of a $500 payment every month. And that $20 is going to principal. $480 is going to interest. Explain what front loading means.
Yeah, so I mean, it's similar to a mortgage works that way, right? Yeah. The larger the balance is you owe, the more of your initial payments are going towards the interest, right? So that's what front loading is. So I'm trying to think of simple math. So if you buy a house and your house payment is $1,000 a month, you owe $100,000 on it. I'm just trying to keep nice, easy, round numbers. When you first start out, you owe that $100,000. So the majority of that payment is going towards the interest. Over time, over that 30-year mortgage, you pay the principal down slowly, but you get to that last 5 or 10 years, you've now paid the majority of the interest since, if your payment was $1,000 a month, $900 of it's going to interest, $100 is going to principal. As that balance comes down, there's less to charge interest on. And so towards the end of that situation, more of your payment is actually going towards the principal. That's why there is the 15-year mortgage opportunity out there. And when you go that route, you can actually pay your house off quicker. It's also why if, say, your house payment's $1,000 a month, you're in a position where you can throw an extra $500 a month strictly towards principal. You can actually potentially pay your house off in less than a 15-year mortgage because you're now eating away the principal. Therefore, there's less to charge interest on. But from a financing perspective, that's where banks or financial organizations are making their money off the interest. So they're going to charge you as much as they can of that up front. And the longer that note goes on, the more money they make in the long run.
Ladies?
Again, I say, what a world, what a world. So Natalie, we talked about the fact that people don't feel comfortable talking about money a lot of the time. So how do you help people get over that when they work with you?
The number one thing I do is I tell them my own story. And that is I'm 52 years old. I am not fully financially independent, financially free. I couldn't retire tomorrow and never work another day in my life, basically. I'm still working on my old retirement or my own retirement, because like I said, I spent 20 years in corporate America in finance and accounting. I still didn't know this. I came across the business opportunity in financial services just over 5 years ago. So I was already behind the 8 ball too. I had a 401k and I thought if I fund my 401k my entire career, it's going to be enough. It's not. The 401k was not designed to be a standalone independent retirement tool. It was actually created to accompany a pension. But what happened over time is companies got rid of pensions and replaced them with the 401k, which kept more money in their own pocket. And so again, without that education, people don't understand that. And so I just tell them where I was. When my son was in junior high, I was working my butt off to rebuild my career from being in a couple companies that filed bankruptcy back to back. So my number one goal was to get into a house by the time he was in high school. I didn't make it his freshman year, but I did make it his sophomore year. And that to me was the legacy that I could leave to him. someday when I'm not here, like the investment in this house will pass on to him. And because I wasn't able to afford that college fund or, invest in all these different things as a single mom. But I tell him that story that I moved my 9-year-old son into a 1-bedroom apartment, and he knew darn well that he shared a room with his mom. But I'll tell you the flip side of that. And I say this to my clients too. I'm not here to judge you. I only need to know where you are today so that I can help you get to where you're trying to go. If I don't know where we're starting from, how do I help build that bridge? But I tell people too that I looked back so many times and thought I failed. I failed him here. I failed him there. And then his senior night at his football banquet, all of the young men introduced their moms or their dad if they lived with their dad. And my son stood up in front of all of his football friends with his arm around me and told them all how proud he was of me, because at one point we were almost bankrupt. And 4 years later, we owned our own house. And so was I proud of that along the way? No, I thought it meant that I was failing my son. But I taught him an incredible lesson, what hard work creates. And I found out that my son was paying attention the whole time. And so he watched me overcome that. That's the biggest way that I'm able to break down those barriers, is by just opening up and telling people where I've struggled along the way. And I think it makes them a lot more comfortable to tell the same story, because they can see in my story that I've moved in the direction that I want to be able to take them in as well. But if I don't ever tell them that, then they don't know how I can relate to them. And for me, I'm not looking to have a transactional relationship with my clients. I want a long-term relationship. I want to help them every step of the way. And then hopefully I can help their own kids someday. And that's the goal for me. I'm not here for, it's not about the paycheck for me. It's about making enough other people's dreams come true. And in doing that, helping them reach those goals and dreams they have, I'm going to reach all of mine.
See, Kevin?
Yes.
Isn't she amazing? You're not like your normal accountant, money person, right?
Well, no. And
person talk like that?
no. Well, the cool thing is that you relate to people who are looking at their personal situation going, they tell me I'm going to need $1 million to retire.
Yeah.
There is no friggin' way that I'm going to get. I got $37.50 in my checking account and $10 in my savings account because I want to keep it open. How am I going to get to $1 million? Right. How is that even possible? It can be done, but it takes discipline, and it takes someone like you to be able to say, or it takes just you to be able to say, you need to do these things. And then over time, nothing happens overnight. Over time, you can go down that road a little bit. But a lot of it's education and teaching. Like, do you work with men?
I do. I work with everybody.
Good. Could you work with my son and teach him how to make a budget? And then when I say, could you please make a budget? And he says, no, Dad, I'm not going to make a budget. Can I see your budget? No, Dad, you may not see my budget because I don't want you to know what I'm spending my money on. It's like, okie doke.
Yeah, I certainly can help him. And the crazy thing is that I always thought people are hesitant to talk to me about their money because they're worried about what I'm going to think. What I've come to find out is they're more worried about the slap in the face when they realize what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest mindset shift in the process. It's why we start with a financial needs analysis where we're digging into all their numbers. And what's really cool is the system that our IT experts built for us takes those numbers and immediately translates them. So if I relate it to my world in corporate America, in accounting, you put transactions into the computer. You just plug numbers into the computer. The finance team then pulls those numbers out and tells a story. The company's making money, the company's losing money. Here's the areas we should expand, whatever the case might be. That is exactly what I do with my clients. So I plug all their numbers into our system. And then on the right-hand side of the screen, it creates calculations that I then walk them through. Here's how much money that you need in retirement based on how much you said you want to make in retirement and the age you want to retire and the average life expectancy of 85. You need 30 years of income. Here's what your net worth is. Here are the buckets you're saving money in, the buckets you're paying taxes in. And at the end of the day, here's how much money you have left at the end of every month, or how much month you have left at the end of your money. And then the last thing it does is it gives them what's called a financial independence number. That is the calculation of that income they need over 30 years. And when I pop open that window, more often than not, people's jaws drop or they fall off their chair because it seems like a whole lot of money. But once I've showed them that, then I can show them the tools that will help them get there. And not only do I educate them on finance to begin with, I educate them on how my job is to show them options, not sell them something. I'm supposed to educate them and show them options so they can make a decision that they feel confident about on the direction to go. And so I'm going to show them tools that will help them fill that gap between where they are and that $3 million number they need, because they want to travel the world and have investment properties like I do. Like I'm a single lady. My financial independence number is $3.8 million because that's the kind of life I want to live in retirement. But I have a lot of clients that it's $750,000, $800,000, maybe $1 million. They're not big travelers. And so that's why it's so important to sit down and go through that detail with every client, because people aren't made from a cookie cutter. And our dreams and goals don't come out of a cookie cutter machine. They're different and our situations are different. But with the right tools and the right timing, you can really create some pretty incredible things. And oftentimes leave a legacy you didn't think was possible for your loved ones when you graduate life. And that's my goal.
$3.8 million. What do you do? What are you planning on doing for fun?
Everything, Kevin, everything. I'm going to travel the world. I'm only going to fly first class. I'm going to have multiple investment properties. I'm going to give back to my church and the charities that are near and dear to my heart. And I mean, well, I'll tell you one of my big dreams. It's a 1963 split window fastback Corvette, fully restored.
Oh, geez.
So that's gonna take up a chunk of that right there. So I got some car dreams too.
There's 150 grand right off the top.
Yep. And I'm not gonna feel bad about it.
No. And you
No,
shouldn't.
it's money that you've earned. No.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
girls.
So I know you're also a big proponent of life insurance.
Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about why life insurance is so important, even to people who don't have kids or don't, think they feel like they need to leave a legacy. Why do you need it?
So life insurance, I think most people think life insurance is just to pass on to beneficiaries if you die too soon. And the truth is that just like cars have changed from the 1950s to 2024, so have financial products. And so life insurance is no longer for just dying too soon. It's if you live too long. Every single year, the percentage of Americans who suffer from a chronic illness increases. And my mom happens to be one of them. And my parents have lived with me for 18 months because of that. And I am honored and blessed to get to take care of them in their later years. Like they took care of me when I was not independent as a child, right? But it still costs money. There's medications, even Medicare is not free. And so you have to cover bills. At some point, my mom's care will require more than I can provide. And then we have to look at the cost of in-home nursing or a third-party facility to care for her. And even if you have Medicare, you have to wait for a Medicare bed at a lot of those facilities. And I refuse personally to let my mom live a life of less than in the last years she has left on this earth. That's why life insurance is important, because every life insurance policy I sell, whether it's a term or a permanent or a cash value policy that you can use for retirement as well, comes with living benefits, chronic, critical, and terminal illness coverages. And if you are diagnosed with one of those, you actually have the ability to tap into the face value. So if you have $1 million policy, you're able to tap into a portion of that face value based on your age and the type of issue you're facing to help cover those expenses. Now, yeah, that may mean if you do have beneficiaries, there's less to leave when you're gone, but you certainly didn't bankrupt them either. Right? And then on top of that, a lot of people, even though they don't have children or maybe they're not married, they may be very involved in their church or in their community and giving back. And so to be able to leave a legacy to some causes like that is really important to them as well. And look, at the end of the day, if you don't use that chronic, critical, or terminal illness, you do have a death benefit to pass along. But if you need it, it's there, and it happens more and more every single year. We see that percentage increase for lots of different reasons. So,
yeah, just something that people don't know about. Like, I don't think most people don't.
Never knew that until we met you.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me. I live alone. I take care of myself. I can cook and take care of myself and all that kind of stuff. But if comes a time when I can't, my kids have told me, Dad, you're going into a home. We ain't coming to your house to clean you up, and you're going into a home. So that's $8,000 to $10,000 minimum.
Yeah.
A month.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I mean, especially if you want a private room.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Could you imagine living with another old person who you don't even know, and they're in the bed next to you? Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I mean, Mom, that's one of my mom's biggest fears. And when we found out she'd been diagnosed with dementia, gosh, it was probably about 3 years ago. And my parents lived in Utah at the time. So I would travel back and forth. I'm in North Texas. I would travel back and forth, and I started looking at the red folder. They had the red folder. They kept all their financial documents in. And my brother and I sat down and started going through that and having those hard conversations. I'm going to tell you guys, those conversations are never fun, but they're a lot easier the younger that you are. And here's why I say that. I had that conversation, and my mom carries a huge fear of being in a facility. Her mom had a stroke when I was 6, and she lived till I was about 16. And nursing homes weren't, 45 years ago, weren't what they are today. And my mom has always carried that with her. So she has a huge fear of that. And so a promise my brother and I made to them is that we would take care of them for as long as we possibly could until we didn't have a choice. And thank goodness my parents lived in the house we grew up in for 43 years. They 10 times their money when they sold that house because they stayed there for so long. And we were able to put somewhere that they won't have to ever live a life of less than. But coming home from there and starting to work on my parents' legacy planning, I sat down with my own son, who, when he came home from leave a couple years ago, and we had that same conversation. And he told me what he wants, if by chance, God forbid, he goes first. And I've explained what I want. And so having that conversation with me at around 49 or 50 years old and him in his late teens, early 20s was a heck of a lot easier conversation than when you're starting to have fears because life is changing and that, the end is closer than it is far away. And now we don't have to worry about having that conversation in the future based on what we want. We have some things put in place to take care of that, so the other one never has to worry about it.
Smart.
By the time you get to be our age or my age, I'll keep this singular rather than.
We're not far off.
I won't include you guys, but when you get to be my age, and then somebody that you looked at and respected, like Richard Simmons passes away, or Shelley passes away, or and they're within shouting distance of your age, the reality it can be a little bit disconcerting at times.
Yeah.
And if you haven't prepared for it, it's really disconcerting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And my son told me, he's like, Mom, I love that you have Nana and Papa here. I'm never going to do that for you. So similar to your kids. And I said, it's okay, buddy. I would not want to depend on you for that. I already have my own plan. At the point that I don't want to take care of a house and all the responsibilities with it, I'm going to go ahead and move into a fully independent retirement community, but I can stay there. And I have a community of people around me while I'm still able, and I can travel and do all the things I want. But as things decline, they have the facility and services there to take care of that as well. So like, everybody's not equipped to be a caretaker. And let me say this, if you don't feel like you're equipped to be a caretaker, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not everybody may feel that way in the heat of a moment or a hard conversation, but it is better for you not to be a caretaker if you truly don't feel like you're wired to be one. And, there's hard conversations to be had, but being a caretaker for my parents, I want people to know that not going in that direction, if you don't feel like it's meant for you, is absolutely okay. And it's the best in the long run for everybody involved. But the sooner you have those conversations, the easier it is to deal with those situations when they do arise.
Can I tell you what happened in my house?
Please.
Yes.
My mother passed away 3 years ago. Oh, she passed away 3 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
And of course, she was 90.
Mm-hmm.
She swore she was going to live to be 112.
Mm.
The week that she died, she went to dinner on Wednesday, played bridge on Thursday, was going to go to a birthday party on Saturday. It didn't make it because she died on Friday in her bed.
Mm.
She was not prepared. She did not share where everything was.
Mm-hmm.
And up to and including the point that we were cleaning stuff out, and my sister had put a box that was marked CDs. Opened the lid, there was nothing in it, she thought. So it was marked CDs, and it was in the pile of stuff that was going to be thrown out. And I said, "Oh, that's a nice box," and I opened it up. There was a lid that and a insert under there, and I took off the insert. In there was her birth certificate, was her several other important papers, and $35,000 in savings bonds.
Wow.
She didn't tell us about that at all. So had I not done that, we would have thrown out $35,000 in savings.
Oh my God.
So it's important for you, if you're one of us older folks, they're not going to steal your money from you if you're careful with it. But you need to let people know where stuff is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the, through some of our products, there's a service called a digital vault. And so when you do put everything in place that you need, and usually, it is very rare for me to have somebody walk in that has, a perfect setup of things already in place. There's a couple holes to plug and they're ready to pull that trigger and they're good to go from there. That is almost non-existent. But along the way, as you go through all those things, once we identify I always say the holes in your boat. When we identify what the holes in your boat are, we start plugging them one at a time. Sometimes we can work on a couple of them at once. It just depends on what we're looking at doing. But a part of that whole process is legacy planning, putting an estate plan together to make sure that, number one, your wishes are met. Number two, you avoid probate for your loved ones when you're gone. And number three, everything is documented clearly and put in one place. And then you can designate the person or people who have access to that upon your passing. And then in addition to that, you can have a final expense plan that will cover all the costs associated with your funeral based on what you want that to look like. And there's even funeral concierges you can work with, and you can select everything up front so that when that time comes, your loved one picks up the phone, makes one phone call, and they step in and take care of everyone. And then your family can spend time leaning on each other and grieving through a difficult time instead of worrying about where is it, what did they want, what do they have, and where's the insert that I've got to find in a box. Everything's in one place. And so it takes a lot of stress off of them during a really difficult time. And I don't think anybody intentionally means to leave things messy or unorganized. We all think we have more time than we do. And tomorrow's not promised for any of us, no matter what our age is. And so the sooner you can be prepared and plan for those things, it can just not only take stress off yourself, but everybody that you care about as well.
Yeah.
Yep. When she got to the pearly gates, no one was as surprised as she was. Like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm not 112 yet.
I got cheated.
That's right. I had more time. No, you didn't. It was over.
Oh my goodness.
I would like to change the subject slightly. I would like to talk to Natalie about the new project that you're working on. Are you able to talk about that with the athletes?
I can talk a little bit about that. Yes. I won't go
amazing.
into names and specifics, but I'm very excited. So let me start by saying that working with me doesn't cost my clients anything. My clients never pay me for my time. So one of the big things that holds people back when it comes to sitting down with somebody is it's going to cost a lot, or I have to have a certain amount of money to put away. Neither of those things is true. I am an independent agent building my own business within the umbrella of a company that lets me access all the providers I could ever need to tailor make plans for my clients. So that being said, I get paid by those providers when I put a client in a product. They're like, thank you for bringing me a client. But it means I can work with anyone. And I preface the story with that because I have a cousin that started a sports management company last year. It's less than a year old, and what they are doing is absolutely remarkable. When I found out about it, I reached out to her. I wanted to know more about what she was doing. So my mom is Polynesian. I do not look like it. My mom is a very light-skinned Polynesian, and my dad is incredibly white. So, but I've always had a desire to help the Polynesian community for several different reasons. And so I reached out to her to understand, this is one of my Polynesian cousins. Her name is Mary. I reached out to understand, what are you doing? How are you, how I didn't even, I saw, can't even think of the movie right now with Tom Cruise. Show Me the Money.
Show me the money.
Right?
Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, thank you. So everybody has that idea, right? That you get your rep that negotiates your contracts and all of that for you. That's about all I knew about sports management. And so as I was talking through it with her, she told me that, so her two oldest boys have some phenomenal offers on the table for them in the future. And when she started meeting with her sons and her husband to look at what those opportunities looked like, the thing she was concerned about is they didn't take into account any family values and developing her sons as a whole complete person beyond their athletic career. And so she decided to create a sports management agency that would. And so she did. And part of that is wanting to provide a financial education to these athletes. So I am currently creating a 5-course education program that will be written into their contracts that they participate in, so that they have the foundation and the education. Now, let's hope they apply it and put themselves in a great position in the long run. But the idea is to provide that education for them on how to make how as they get money to turn around and put some of it away when they're young so that it's working for them when their NFL, NBA, whatever career comes to an end. And so I'm super excited about that. We're going to be talking about money mindset and budgeting, debt and credit scores. We're going to be talking about taxes, retirement savings, and even long-term legacy and estate planning as well. So a lot of times those athletes will end up starting a foundation of some kind, something like that. So just showing them all the ins and outs of money before they have millions and millions of dollars thrown in their face and they don't know what to do with. But that's the beauty of starting young. It doesn't take a whole lot in your early 20s to put away and create multiple millions of dollars in the future that allow you to start foundations, create another business after your sports career ends, and things like that. So just showing them what's available there and educating them on the tools. We're going to make it kind of fun. I'm excited about how these classes are coming together. And you know, a lot, not all of the athletes, but some of the athletes are Polynesian. And so it's getting my foot in the arena to help my mom's culture and a lot of my relatives and things like that when it comes to what I do. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you for asking.
And I know that you have done your research and that you are aware of how big of a problem this is.
Absolutely.
Because you know what the NFL stands for?
Tell me.
Not for long.
Yeah. Yeah.
The average NFL career is 3.5 years.
Yep.
The average person makes gross, if you're sign a minimum contract, about $900,000 a year. And we think, oh man, that's a lot of money. Not if it's going to have to last your whole life and you only can get 3 years out of it. And the other thing is, a sports career where you're going to get millions of dollars is never, ever going to be assured. It's going to be your hard work and what you do. You need to be financially educated before you get in there. And you also need to have a good team around you who can keep the riffraff away from you. Because do you ever watch the NFL draft?
Yes. I love watching the draft.
When the first round, I love watching the first rounders when somebody will call their name like they're the fifth guy or whatever. And they're there and there are 20 people in that room. Maybe they're all relatives, but they're friends and family and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of them are, good for you. I'm so glad for you. And the rest of them are like, look at me. I'm going to be able to suck off this guy because he's going to have millions of dollars. So they need to be educated. And so thank you for doing that, because
thank you.
Nothing breaks my heart more than to have a 30-year-old guy that was on top of the world when he was 25, 26, rode in limousines and bought lots of cars and stuff. And then he's dead broke by the time he's 30, and he's dead by the time he's 35. That's just a horrible thing.
Yeah. No, thank you. My hope is it can spread into other areas too, because it's not just athletes. The other thing is, most of these athletes we're capturing them in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So college rules changed a few years back where they could actually make money in college. And the UIL rules recently changed where they can actually start getting sponsorships and making money even in high school. So at the end of the day, only a certain % of those high school athletes are going to get that full ride scholarship to play in college. And then it's an even smaller % that are going to get an opportunity to go in the NFL, the NBA. I mean, all of those sports, right? The percentage of moving to the next level decreases enormously, from high school to college and then the professional level. And so if they do get some of that money coming their way in high school or even in college and they don't go in the NFL, it's not about, you got $5 million NFL contract, give me 3 of it. It's not at all that. When you're 18, 19, even 22 or 23 years old, you put $50,000 or $100,000 somewhere and it would blow your mind what that can turn into by the time you're 65 if you put it in the right place. And there's ways you can do it tax-free as well. So, But it all comes back to that education. And, not just for athletes. My son is 23 years old, and because he started young at 18, he's setting himself up for retirement with $150 a month. That's all it takes when you're that young. But most of us don't stop and think about retirement until we get, into our early and late 40s, and our kids are starting to go off to college and start their own families. And then we're like, oh crap, how am I going to retire in 20 years? Because I've been putting into my 401k, the average 401k has around $150,000 in it for somebody that's in their 40s. And so how are they going to turn that into that $1 million they need, like you said earlier, Kevin, by the time they're 65? So it's the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be, and the less money it will take to get you there.
I had a relative one time that said, well, I'm not going to worry about retirement. And I said, you're not? And he said, oh, no, Social Security take care of me. And he was a private contractor. He didn't necessarily pay all of his taxes. He didn't necessarily pay all his Social Security taxes. And so when he retired early, because he could no longer roof, he was a roofer. He could no longer roof, and he was getting $900 a month. I defy any human being to live on $900 a month.
Agreed.
Yep.
But that's
Agreed. And not only that, I mean, they're constantly telling us that Social Security is going to be bankrupt in this many years and that many years. And the only way that extends is that they lower the benefit amount, or they raise the age for you to be able to claim it at the maximum amount. Or some combination of those two things. And so if the amount keeps going down and the age keeps going up, what happens, exactly like you said, to those people who need it sooner because they can't work? And then too, if you didn't put into it, there's not that much there to draw from. So I mean, every financial tool exists for a reason, and it's the right fit for the right person at a specific time. That's why it's important to sit down with somebody that can look at where you are. And everything I do is not driven by the numbers at all. It's never driven by the numbers. It's driven by what they want, what kind of life they want to live, what kind of financial freedom they're looking for, and at what age. And then I work backwards from there to figure out the numbers. Sometimes it's harder work than others. Sometimes it requires, maybe they've got to figure out how to make some extra money for a few years to get rid of debt. But there's always a way to get there. But it's most importantly about what matters to them.
Hi, welcome to Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's be honest, there were a lot of people ready to retire when 2008 hit.
Yeah.
Who ended up having to work 5-10 years to let their 401k recover from a 40% loss almost. Because as soon as you start pulling that money out, it's a permanent loss. It's not there to grow back anymore. And so that's where also it's important that's why giving people options and showing them everything that's available and how it works is so important, because there comes a point that protecting that money so that can't happen to you is vitally important. And there's ways to do that so that you will never lose another penny and you cannot outlive your money.
I got a story about that too. My father did very well, and he was an executive with Nordstrom's for a long time, and during their big growth period. So he got a rather large profit sharing check that he put nothing into.
Yeah.
If he didn't have that, he would have been poor. Anyway, he had that. And in 2008, when the stock market went down, he had passed by this point. And so my mother was in charge of his estate. And 2008 happened, a 40% drop. And then she started listening to the wrong people who said, it's going to get worse. It's going to go down. It's going to go down. The sky is falling. It's going to go down forever. It's never going to recover. So she pulled it out and put it in bonds when it was at its lowest point. That was when it was at the 8,000 level. It's now at the 30,000 something level, but she lost all of the upswing So that's why it's important to hire somebody who knows what they're talking about, who can keep you from doing something stupid like that, because that affected everybody in their whole family. So if somebody has got a decision like that ahead of them and they want to talk to you, how do they get a hold of you?
So the best way to get a hold of me is you can email me. It's NatalieKeimConsulting.com, or I'm sorry, Natalie@NatalieKeimConsulting.com. You can certainly email me. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, under Natalie McPhee Keim. So you can direct message me that way. And I have a podcast that's called Nickels and Dimes, Finding Financial Freedom. So it's on all the podcast platforms. There's a way to contact me straight through the podcast as well. But also,
and I just want to say for people listening and not looking, it's K-I-M as in Mary E, Natalie Keim.
Yes. Thank you for that. But yeah, I mean, and the podcast is all about getting more financial education out there, sharing stories of success, and things like that to help people dream again and think that it's possible, because it's really easy to get beat down by life on a daily basis. And so I can't help every single person, but if I can give them some information and guide them in the right direction, I feel like I'm making a difference.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. I live in a 55 plus trailer home community. And you wouldn't believe the number of people that are barely able to pay for the lot of land that they've got. They never leave their house. They can't afford anything because they're on a fixed income, maybe for 20 years, that now is not meeting their needs. And so it's really, can't think of anything worse than having at the end of life being that you can't afford milk. That just be awful. And so
agree.
It's important for people to get educated, and you can do that. So thank you for doing this. And ladies, thank you for bringing her. The Passionistas have done that. Hey, that's twice in a row I didn't screw up your name. How about that?
I know. So proud of you.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And Nancy, Amy, what would you like to add before we go?
I would like to just say that you can also find Natalie and other amazing Passionistas at the PassionistasProject.com/sisterhood. And you can find Natalie there and hook up with all sorts of other amazing supportive women. And I'd also like to say the fear of doing something is worse than actually doing it. The fear of dealing with your finances is actually worse than dealing with your finances, especially if you have someone like Natalie on your side. So just do it. If you're afraid of doing it, just do it.
Amy?
I just want to say the world can be a very scary place. And I think this week has shown us all that. If we needed a reminder, and there are amazing people like Natalie who are out there doing really, really good work to try and make the world a better, safer, less stressful place for everybody. And we're really grateful to know you, Natalie. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to know you both as well. And now you also, Kevin.
Well, thank you. You'll have to come back and we'll have to talk more, because I'm really interested in this topic because it affects everybody. And we haven't even got into the difference between a Roth and a regular and all that stuff. So we'll need to do that.
Yes, I would love to.
At one point in time. And isn't it, and we got to go, but isn't it just amazing that our technology has advanced to the point where we hear about like the Lincoln assassination or some of the other things that were on, and we hear about them. Now we're seeing stuff in real time.
Yeah.
It's frightening.
It's crazy. It was a crazy day. Yep.
So like I say, be kind to one another, okay? And thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin